Welcome back. It's time for Business with Owen. Hello, Owen. Now, let's start with the Barclays scandal. The consensus is that Bob Diamond survived his interrogation, but the cost to the bank is getting heavier still.
Getting heavier all the time, Claire. One chairman, one chief executive, one chief operating officer, 14 traders, I think, fired over a rate rigging scandal that has left one of Britain's biggest banks' reputation in absolute shreds right now. And that's really only the start, not counting the millions of pounds it has cost this bank. And in the wake of that appearance before a parliamentary committee, some investors are now wondering whether it might be better for Barclays to break itself up. Stephen Carroll has the details.
You're the man in charge. The buck stops with you.
He's the most high-profile casualty of this scandal, but Bob Diamond spent 3 hours defending Barclays and its response to the rate-fixing revelations.
I know Barclays. If we have another situation going forward, we'll still act the same way, to come out and be the first to correct it.
His resignation, along with 2 other senior executives, has left Barclays in a state of disarray. There are serious financial implications for the bank too. Apart from the fines imposed by UK and US authorities, the investigation, Bob Diamond told MPs, cost £100 million. Add to that the 14% drop in the company's share price, wiping £3 billion off its value. It's led to suggestions that Barclays should separate its investment banking arm from the rest of the business. Under questioning from British MPs, Bob Diamond refused to comment on what he planned to do about his share options, worth an estimated £18 million, deferred from his pay packet last year.
We have an episode here that we have to fix, and I think those are questions for the board. I have not asked them, nor has that been of interest to me in the last day or so since I resigned.
With a reported 12 other banks under investigation, Barclays may just be the first of the banking titans to fall. There could be political consequences too. The British Finance Minister George Osborne has accused the previous government of being complicit in the manipulation of the interbank rate.
Now, Barclays shares have recovered a little bit since that massive fine, but they still ended Wednesday's session 2.5% down. How are the rest of the markets looking?
Yeah, a bit flat, Claire. Obviously, we had Independence Day in the US on Wednesday, so all of the markets were closed there. Not a great deal of activity happening on the Asian markets. It's been a good week so far, a good start to the month for those markets in general, so there's a bit of profit taking going on as well. You can see there the Nikkei, the Hang Seng, around about 1/3% down going into the afternoon session.
And many investors want to know what the European Central Bank is going to do next before they get back into the market.
Absolutely. They're going to be sitting this session out pretty much until they know what the European Central Bank is going to do with its main financing rate. Now, the ECB doesn't have an awful lot of options left, 1 or 2 perhaps. Lots of economists are expecting the European Central Bank to bring interest rates down today. Now, they're pretty low already. In fact, the lowest they've ever been in the lifetime of the ECB, down at 1%. You compare that, though, with countries like Japan and the US, where you've got interest rates at nearly 0. The ECB perhaps does have some room to go. Could maybe cut interest rates by about 0.25%. Why? Because we've got so many Eurozone economies in recession right now. Spain is in recession. Greece, of course, we have these ongoing problems with these stalling economies around. Even France isn't in great shape right now. So by reducing interest rates, they could do the classic trick of trying to stimulate a little bit of consumer demand, try and stimulate a few exports here and there. The other thing they could do, though, is raise interest rates. And they did this last summer. It took everyone by surprise. They were a bit worried about inflation back then. Not really a concern now when you've got manufacturing down, recessions around the Eurozone and so on. So it could potentially go either way. We'll obviously get more details about that later on this Thursday when the ECB meets.
All right, now it's been a busy week for French President François Hollande. Balancing the books to meet new EU budget targets means he has to save €30 billion. Now his government has turned its attention to meeting one of his populist pledges, getting a bit more money out of France's wealthiest earners. Caterina Vitosi has the story.
Living in France and worth more than €1.3 million? If yes, the French government wants a slice of your cash. To tackle their budget deficit, ministers have proposed €7.2 billion worth of one-off spot taxes for rich households and big businesses. In practice, this will only affect about 300,000 people, previously protected by a tax shield brought in by former President Nicolas Sarkozy.
This is to reintroduce fiscal fairness, by which we basically mean doing the exact opposite of what the previous government did. We will ask those who greatly benefited from those tax policies these past 5 years and who were greatly privileged, despite being in a position to contribute, to now make their contributions.
The French government needs to chop its budget deficit from 5.2% to 3% by next year to fit in with new EU rules. Monday's state auditor figures made grim reading. Government spending needs to be reduced by more than €30 billion by 2013. But socialist ministers want taxation first, spending cuts later. Britain is capitalising on this squeeze on the rich to flag up London as the place to be, with lower tax bans and lighter financial regulation.
I think it's wrong to have completely uncompetitive top rates of tax. And I've said before that if the French go ahead with a 75% top rate of tax, we will roll out the red carpet and welcome more French businesses to Britain, and they can pay taxes in Britain.
The French government's proposals are likely to pass through their majority in Parliament, leaving France's top earners pondering, is this the country for them?
Now, if you are one of France's wealthy and you are planning to flee France and head to Britain and take up that invitation from David Cameron, maybe this is the place for you. It is Western Europe's tallest tower. It's pretty much finished. It's called the Shard, Claire. There it is in London, right by the Thames. Almost finished. This has been built by the Qatari government, who've put all the money into this. 95 stories high, around 300 metres, 360 metres. It is officially Western Europe's tallest building. Not as tall as, say, the Burj, though, in Dubai. I think that's about twice the size. How about this? The penthouse suites at the top of this will set you back around 30 million. Apparently, the estate agents are saying they don't actually need to get interest in this. They actually approach the buyers themselves because they reckon there's only about 30 or 40 people in the world that could afford this kind of thing. You have to wonder, though, I did see this when last time I was in London, completely obscured. The top was completely obscured by the cloud, and London is exactly the kind of place
if you spend 30 million on a penthouse and you can't see out your window.
The view. Yeah. So that will be ready, I believe. I think it is completed, but most of the restaurants and so on won't actually be open until next year. But it will be pretty much ready in time for the Olympics.
All right, Owen, thank you very much for that. Let's move on now to some company news. A fraud investigation has been opened into nearly 36 former executives at Spain's Bankia. They're accused of price fixing and false accounting. Both shareholders and politicians have been demanding an inquiry into the running of the company since it was part nationalised in May. The move brought shares down even further, leaving thousands of investors out of pocket.
Volkswagen says it will finalise its takeover of rival German manufacturer Porsche by the end of the month. VW is to pay €4.5 billion for the majority stake in the sports car maker it doesn't currently own. The buyout will end a complicated deal that first began in 2008, with Porsche trying to buy out VW.
And some of South Asia's budget carriers have beaten their more prestigious rivals over customer satisfaction. Both AirAsia and Jetstar came out ahead of Singapore Airlines and Qantas in a survey conducted by researchers Nielsen. Singapore and Qantas have made significant losses as smaller airlines capitalise on a growing market for budget flights in the region.
What do you make of that, Claire? You think you've travelled on Qantas, I guess, if you're going back to Australia?
Qantas and Jetstar. I'm not sure Jetstar's better than Qantas. I guess it depends how much time you spend on the plane, really. Yeah.
It does. I've travelled AirAsia. I thought they weren't bad, but that was some time ago. But it just goes to show just how big these little airlines are becoming right now. They're covering right across Southeast Asia. You travel to Indonesia, I travelled to Indonesia earlier on this year. People are starting to use planes because they're affordable. They're having the same kind of transport revolution that we've seen here in Europe, where people now can actually afford to zip about Southeast Asia on these smaller budget carriers.
Okay, well, I think some of those carriers over here could maybe do with,
you've gone through the looking glass when Ryanair comes out on top of those sort of surveys.
Yes, exactly. Thank you very much, Owen, and thank you for watching. Stay tuned to France 24.